I want to tell you something, not the version I've rehearsed for stages, not the version I use in interviews when someone asks how I built everything, not the version where I lean back and say it wasn't easy but I stayed disciplined, and the audience nods and takes notes and goes home feeling motivated for exactly 48 hours before the old weight settles back over their shoulders like a wet coat. No, I want to tell you the version I've never said out loud, the one that lives in the part of me I learned to lock down before anyone could see it. The version that happened at 3:47 in the morning, alone, in a penthouse I'd worked 12 years to afford, when I sat on the floor, the actual floor, back against the couch, not even making it to a chair. And I felt nothing, not sadness, not fear, nothing, just this vast cathedral silence inside a chest that was supposed to be full. I need you to stay with me for this. I need you to not scroll, not yet. Because what I'm about to say, I think you already know it. I think you felt the edge of it. In the quiet moments before sleep comes, and before the phone lights up again, I think some part of you has already been standing in that room I just described, back against the couch, wondering why the number in your account or the title on your email signature or the number of people watching your life hasn't filled the thing that's hollow. I think you already know. But sometimes a man has to say it out loud before the knowing becomes real. So let me say it. I built a calendar so tight there wasn't room for a conversation that didn't have an outcome. I built a body that looked like discipline and felt like punishment. I built a reputation that people whispered about in rooms I never entered. And I told myself that was success, that was legacy, that was what it meant to matter. I built a version of myself so efficient, so productive, so relentlessly optimized that he didn't need anyone. He didn't pause. He didn't sit on floors at 3:47 in the morning. He had systems. He had frameworks. He had quarterly reviews of his own emotional state, for God's sake, like grief was a KPI and vulnerability was a quarterly loss to be minimized. I thought that was strength. I thought if I wanted nothing, if I needed nothing, then nothing could touch me. I thought the goal was to become untouchable. Here's what I learned. The goal of becoming untouchable is the goal of becoming alone. That's it. That's the whole equation. You optimize the need out of yourself, and what you're left with is a beautiful, high-functioning shell of a person who has every external marker of success, and not one person on this earth who actually knows him. Not one, because you never let them. Because you were too busy building the altar and too proud to admit that altars are cold and quiet and empty, and no one wants to live inside a monument. People want to live inside a home, and I didn't know the difference. For a long, long time, I genuinely did not know the difference between building an empire and building a home. I thought they were the same project. I thought if I made the empire big enough, the home feeling would just arrive, like a reward. Like the emotional equivalent of the penthouse view, it doesn't arrive. It doesn't arrive because it's not built from the same material. Let me go back further. Let me go back to where this started. Because this didn't start in a boardroom or a gym or a morning routine. This started in a house I grew up in, with parents who loved me the way they knew how, which was conditionally, which was through performance, which was through the subtle and devastating lesson that love is something you earn, not something you receive. I want to say that carefully, because I don't say it with bitterness. I say it with the compassion I had to learn late the hard way, that the people who taught me conditional love were themselves taught conditional love, and their parents before them. And at some point down the line, some original wound just keeps getting passed forward like a stone in the hand of someone who doesn't know they're holding it. But here's what I absorbed. Here's what my nervous system recorded long before I had the vocabulary for it. Be useful. Be impressive. Don't need, don't ask. Don't let them see you struggle, because struggle is weakness, and weakness means you're less, and less means the love gets smaller, and smaller love means... And then that sentence never finished. That's the sentence that never finished. Just the thread of it, dangling, keeping me running. So I ran toward every accomplishment, every certificate, every milestone, every metric. I ran so hard and so fast and so long that running became my identity. I forgot that I was running from something. I thought I was just a person who ran. I thought that was my nature. I thought that was who I was. Wait, before you scroll, I need you to feel this next part. Tell me something. When was the last time someone asked you how you were doing, genuinely asked, looked at you, held the space, and you told them the truth? Not, I'm good, just busy, not the elevator version, not the performance, the truth. When was the last time you said it out loud? I'm exhausted and I don't know why. I've achieved everything I said I wanted, and there's still this hunger that won't stop. I'm afraid that if I slow down, the whole thing will fall apart. I'm afraid that if people actually knew me, the real me, the uncertain one, the one who doubts at 3 a.m., they would leave. When was the last time you said that? I know, because I went years without saying it. I went so long without saying it that I forgot it was there. I just kept adding to the structure, kept stacking bricks on top of bricks, building this towering thing that looked like a life but was actually just evidence. Evidence that I was enough. Evidence that I was worth something. Evidence displayed for an audience I was always performing for but never actually saw, because I was too busy performing to look up. And then she walked into my life. I'm not going to tell you it was fireworks. I'm not going to give you the movie version because the movie version is a lie designed to make you think love announces itself. It doesn't. Love arrives quietly the way morning does. You don't see the moment the darkness leaves. You just notice at some point that the room is different. She didn't rescue me. I need you to hear that. She didn't fix me or complete me or hand me the missing piece like some cosmic transaction. She wasn't a savior. She was just present, profoundly, stubbornly, inconveniently present. She asked questions and then waited for the actual answer instead of the polished one. She noticed when I went quiet. Not the productive quiet, but the other quiet. The one that meant I was retreating behind the wall, building the distance up, going back to the place where I was untouchable and safe and utterly alone. She'd look at me and say, "Where did you go?" And I didn't know what to do with that. I deflected the first 100 times. I laughed it off. I redirected to logistics, to plans, to the future because the future was safe. The future was something I could build and control and map out in spreadsheets. But the present? Sitting in the present, being seen in the present, having no project to point to, but just existing in the room with someone who was watching you with open eyes and asking nothing except that you stay. That was the most terrifying thing I had ever been asked to do, more terrifying than any risk I'd ever taken. More terrifying than any failure I'd ever faced. More terrifying than the empty bank account I'd once had, or the collapsed deal, or the public humiliation. All of those things I knew how to meet with strategy and grit and forward motion, but she was asking me to be still. I didn't know how to be still, and I realize now that was the whole problem. I had spent decades in motion because motion felt like control, and control felt like safety. And safety felt like I couldn't be abandoned, couldn't be found insufficient, couldn't be returned like something that didn't meet the standard. Move fast enough and nothing can catch you. Not failure, not grief, not the question that lives underneath everything else. Am I enough? Am I, without the building and the striving and the impressive resume of my ambition, am I enough? I didn't know the answer. I'd never stopped long enough to ask. She made me stop. She didn't do it dramatically. There was no ultimatum, no explosion, no crisis moment designed for narrative effect. It was a Tuesday evening. I was on my phone at dinner, again, half present, giving her 20% of my attention while the other 80 was somewhere in the architecture of tomorrow's calendar. And she put her fork down very quietly and said, "I miss you, and I'm sitting right across from you." That sentence, "I miss you, and I'm sitting right across from you," I've heard sharper words, I've heard harder words, but those 7 words landed somewhere deep and structural, not in my emotions, but in my foundation, and something cracked, not broke, cracked. The way old wood cracks before it breathes. Because the thing about being gone while you're still in the room is that you've mastered a very specific kind of absence. The kind no one can call out easily because technically you're there. Technically your body is present. Technically you're providing. Technically you're doing all the things you were taught a man does. But the part of you that can be known, the part that's uncertain and tender and tired and real, that part is behind bulletproof glass, and you've convinced yourself the glass is necessary because without it everything falls apart. But here's the truth. The glass is what's making everything fall apart, because no one can actually reach you, and you can't actually reach anyone. And after long enough, you're not in a relationship. You're in a performance of a relationship. 2 people moving around each other in choreographed patterns that look like intimacy but feel like solitude. I didn't want to perform anymore. I just didn't know how to stop. Here's what I learned about the prison of having it together. The prison doesn't have bars you can see. It doesn't feel like captivity from the inside. It feels like competence. It feels like being the person everyone relies on, the person who doesn't need, the person who handles things. And people reward you for it. They call you strong. They say they don't know how you do it. They hold you up as an example of what it looks like to function. And every one of those compliments is another brick in the wall because you can't disappoint them now, can you? You can't let the capable one fall apart. You can't let the one who has it together admit that he hasn't had it together in a very long time, that he's been white-knuckling the facade for years, that the composure is not peace but control, and there's a difference, a profound, soul-deep difference between being at peace and being in control. Peace is rest. Control is exhaustion, wearing the mask of strength. I was so tired, and I couldn't tell anyone because being tired was a crack in the structure, and cracks meant collapse, and collapse meant, and there it was again. The unfinished sentence, the original wound. She saw it, though. That's the thing about the right person, the real presence in your life. They see it not because they're looking for weakness to use against you, but because they're looking at you. Actually looking. The way you look at something you love. Not appraising it, not auditing it, not measuring it against a standard. Just seeing it. She saw the tired underneath the capable, and she didn't run. That was the first time I understood that my deepest fear, the fear underneath everything, was not failure. It was being fully known and still not being enough. It was someone seeing the unedited version, the one without the performance and the credentials and the forward momentum, and deciding it wasn't worth staying for. She stayed, and she was quiet with me in it. and she didn't try to fix it, and she didn't offer me a solution or a reframe or a motivational push forward. She just sat in it with me. And that was, I don't have a word that carries the right weight for what that was. Grace might be close, grace and terror simultaneously. Because being met in your realness when you've spent a lifetime expecting to be abandoned there is simultaneously the most relieving and most destabilizing thing a human being can experience. I didn't know what to do with being received, so I started learning, not in a grand, cinematic, overnight transformation way. I'm suspicious of those stories. Real change is embarrassingly small and daily and unglamorous. Real change looks like catching yourself checking your phone at dinner and putting it face down. It looks like a 2-second pause before the practiced answer, asking yourself what the true answer is. It looks like saying, I don't know to someone instead of performing certainty. It looks like sitting in a feeling for 60 seconds without immediately converting it into a task or a plan. These are not dramatic acts. They are the bricks of a different kind of building because I had to understand. And this was the real turning point, the real pivot, that I'd been building the wrong structure for my whole life. I had been building an empire. High, impressive, visible from a distance, designed for observation, requiring constant maintenance, susceptible to weather. But what I actually needed was a home, and homes are built differently. Homes are built low to the ground. Homes are built for shelter, not visibility. Homes are built from the inside out. And most importantly, homes are built with and for the people inside them, not as monuments to the person who constructed them. My empire had no rooms for anyone else. My empire was a monument to my own fear. Look at me for a second. Look at what we do, all of us, men especially, but not only men, with the wound of conditional love. We take that lesson. You must earn your worth. You must perform your value. The love is contingent on the output. And we build entire lifestyles around it, entire identities. We become the achiever, the provider, the strong one, the one who doesn't need. And we get so good at the role that we forget it's a role. We genuinely believe the performance is the self, and then someone loves us anyway. Someone loves the nervous, doubting, uncertain thing underneath the performance, and we don't know what to do with it. We reject it. We minimize it. We say, you don't actually know me. If you knew me, you wouldn't say that. We make their love conditional in our minds, even when they're offering it unconditionally. Because unconditional love is outside the framework we were given. We don't have a file for it. The operating system can't read it. So we go back to performing. We go back to proving. We work harder and achieve more and become more impressive, all in service of earning a love that was already being freely given. And somewhere in that loop, we lose the present entirely. We are always behind the glass, always in the performance, always next quarter, next milestone, next level. Always almost there, never here. Don't deny it. You know this loop. You might be in it right now. You might be watching this at the end of a 16-hour day that felt productive and hollow at the same time. You might have a person in your life, a partner, a parent, a friend, someone who is offering you presence, offering you real contact. And you are right there in the room and also 1,000 miles away because being actually known is more frightening than failing publicly. I know because I spent years there. And what brought me back was not a revelation. It was not a single moment of clarity. It was not a speech I heard or a book I read or a morning routine I installed. It was one person, steady in her refusal to let me stay behind the glass, asking me again and again and again, with patience I did not deserve and presence I had not yet learned to return, where did you go? Until one day I told her everything. I told her about the running, about the conditional love I'd absorbed and the worthiness equation I'd been running in the background of every decision, about the terror of being known, about the night on the floor, about the nothing. I told her about the empire and the altar and how cold it was there and how I had been cold for so long I'd started thinking cold was my natural temperature. I told her I was tired. I told her I'd been performing strength for so long that I didn't actually know what my real strength felt like. I told her I was afraid that underneath the performance there wasn't much, that the real me was smaller and less impressive and more frightened than anyone had ever seen. I told her I'd been terrified my whole life that the real me wasn't worth the love. She looked at me for a long time. And then she said something I want to say to you now, because it's the truest thing anyone has ever said to me. She said, the man you're afraid to show me, that's the one I fell in love with, the other one I just admire. There is a difference between being admired and being loved. Admiration is for the performance. It's real, it's meaningful, it has its place. But it cannot hold you at 3:47 in the morning. It cannot sit with you in the wreckage. It cannot see the unedited version and choose to stay. Love can. But love requires, and this is the part that costs something, love requires you to be seeable. Love requires you to lower the glass. Love requires you to risk the one outcome you've been running from your entire life, the possibility that someone sees all of you and decides you're not enough. And I am telling you, from the other side of that risk, from the place where I finally took it, the risk is worth it. The risk is the only thing worth it, because what's waiting on the other side of that risk is not the disaster you've been imagining. What's waiting is contact, real contact. The actual feeling of being met, of being known, of having your name said by someone who's speaking to the real you and not the version you've curated for public consumption. That contact is what the empire can never buy. That contact is what no milestone can replicate. That contact is home. I had to rebuild, and rebuilding is different from building the first time, because rebuilding means you're working with the rubble of what collapsed, and some of those old bricks are still useful, and some of them are just weight, and you have to learn to tell the difference. You have to pick through the wreckage with enough honesty to say, this ambition, this drive, this capacity for hard work, this is real, this is mine, this serves the life I want to build. And then with equal honesty, this compulsive proving, this terror of stillness, this inability to receive love without immediately trying to earn it. This is the wound talking, not my nature, not my truth. That discernment is the work, and it's not a one-time act. It's a daily practice. It's waking up in the morning and asking, what am I doing today and why? Is this coming from desire or from fear? Is this presence or performance? Am I building a home or an altar? Some days I still build altars. Some days the old pattern is faster than the new awareness, and I'm halfway through the day before I realize I've gone behind the glass again. But now I notice. Now there's a woman who loves me enough to say, where did you go? And a version of me willing to answer honestly. And that noticing, that returning, that willingness to be honest, even when honest is uncomfortable, that is what transformation actually looks like. Not a single dramatic moment. 1,000 small returns. Here's what I want to say to the version of you that's still running. The collapse is coming, not as punishment, as invitation. The emptiness is not evidence that you're broken, it's evidence that you've been building in the wrong direction. The silence at 3:47 in the morning is not your enemy, it's the first honest voice you've heard in years, and what it's saying is, there is more to you than what you produce. Hear that. There is more to you than what you produce. You are not your output. You are not your resume, or your bank balance, or your body, or your reputation, or the number of people who know your name. You are something underneath all of that, something prior to all of that, something that existed before you learned to perform and will exist after the performance ends. And that thing, that original, unperforming, uncertain, tender thing, deserves to be known. You deserve to be known, not the impressive version, not the capable version, not the version that has it together, the version that's sitting on the floor at 3:47, or the version that cried in the car before walking into an important meeting, or the version that Googled the thing you were supposed to already know, or the version that's afraid, quietly, constantly afraid, that one day everyone will see how uncertain you actually feel and the whole structure will collapse. That version. That one deserves love too, and if there's someone in your life offering it, offering the presence, the patience, the willingness to wait for the real answer to the question of how you're doing, I need you to receive it, not perform it, receive it, put the phone down, not just the physical phone, the internal phone, the constant distraction from your own interior, the noise you generate to avoid the silence that might show you something real. Put it down, be in the room, be in the actual physical sensory present tense room with the person who chose to stay. Look at them, not through the glass, not from behind the performance. Look at them the way you looked, at the things you loved before you learned to be impressive. Tell them something true, not the polished thing, not the version that makes you look strong, something actually true. Start small if you have to. I'm tired is a complete and courageous sentence. I don't know is a complete and courageous sentence. I'm glad you're here is a complete and courageous sentence. Start there. Start with one small true thing and watch what it does to the space between you. Watch how the distance compresses. Watch how the glass you built so carefully so long ago starts to thin. I am still building, but I'm building differently now. I'm building with my hands and my presence and my willingness to be wrong and to say so. I'm building with the Tuesday evenings when I put the phone down and stay in the room. I'm building with the conversations I don't optimize, the ones with no goal except contact. I'm building with the mornings. I let myself be held without immediately turning it into a transaction, without earning it, without performing gratitude, just receiving it, just being still in it. I'm building with the moments I say, I need you, without feeling like I've lost something by saying it, because I've finally understood, finally, at long last understood, that needing is not weakness. Needing is the whole point. We are built for it. The need is the connection, and the connection is the home, and the home is what makes the building mean anything. Without it, you have an empire. Beautiful, impressive, hollow, cold. With it, you have a life. The last thing I want to say. I want to say it to her, and I want you to hear it too, because maybe you have a her, or a him, or a them. Maybe there's a person in your life who's been standing at the edge of the glass, patient and present, waiting for you to let them in, and you've been so locked in the performance that you haven't looked up long enough to see them. Look up. They're still there. People who stay through the distance and the absence and the performance and the 3 a.m. silences. They're not staying for the empire. They're not staying for the impressive version. They're staying for the person they sense underneath all of it. The person who sat on the floor, the person who is tired, The person who wants to come home but doesn't know yet that home is not a place you arrive at. It's a practice. It's the daily, deliberate, courageous choice to be present, to be real, to be seeable. Home is what happens when you stop performing and start arriving. So arrive. Arrive in this moment, in this room, in this conversation, in this relationship. Arrive in your own body, your own life, your own present tense. Arrive not as the impressive version. Arrive as the true one with the uncertainty and the tiredness and the love you've been carrying around and haven't known how to give because giving it meant showing it, and showing it meant being known, and being known meant the risk, and the risk meant enough. End the sentence, and start a different one. Start with, I'm here, I'm actually here, and I want you to know me, not the performance, not the empire. Me. That sentence is the foundation, not marble, not impressive, just honest, just real. Just the ground under your feet, solid and humble, the thing you can build a home on. Build the home, please, before it's too late.